Hello and welcome to my channel. It's Tom here again. I'm here to talk to you about some astrology stuff and have a little fun today because this video is a little bit lighter, but also serious. Definitely going to be having some fun with this video, singing a little bit, showing you my wild side, but also bringing it back to how this makes sense. How this inspiration that I'm going to talk to you about, which is the constellation Ophiuchus, and how it relates to the multi-talented recording artist and dancer extraordinaire Britney Spears, how these topics are not only bright and silly and a little bit depraved, popular, fun in a nutshell, but how also they speak to some greater truths. Because when we consider it, at the end of the day, this is music. And the poetry of music speaks volumes about the nature of the human spirit. And so I hope you guys will join me in having fun analyzing these song lyrics and seeing how they relate to the themes of Ophiuchus. So first of all, let's start out by describing Ophiuchus. And before I get into that, you might be asking, why does Ophiuchus matter? It's the 13th sign, but I don't like that. I actually hate people who say 13th sign and, it gets, everybody in a tizzy. People get really upset and they think that, because NASA released a statement about it, that astrology doesn't matter. I don't know. It doesn't matter, okay? None of that's just noise. Ophiuchus is an actual constellation and it has an effect. And it has a myth attached to it as well. So one of the most prominent aspects of Ophiuchus is the snake. And so to see this in more clear imagery, I actually painted a picture of Ophiuchus here. So this is a painting of the figure of Ophiuchus. You can see here there's two prominent stars that I chose to outline here. And those would be, this is called, what's it called? This is called Ras al-Hag, and this one's called Unuk al-Hay. So these are both Arabic terms, and the Ras al-Hag means the head of the magician. Al-Hag, the magician, describes Ophiuchus, and then Unuk al-Hay, Unuk means the throat, and al-Hay means the snake. So the throat of the snake and the head of the magician. And together they form the constellation Ophiuchus, sometimes split up into Ophiuchus and Serpens A and Serpens B or something like that. But altogether they form a coherent symbolism and they have a precedent in myth. Oh, and this little guy here, this is Saturn. And this is why Ophiuchus is important to talk about at this moment. Not only because Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde right near the galactic center with Saturn there, almost taking Saturn's hand as they make the journey into Capricorn, but also because Saturn moves very slow, and Saturn's been inhabiting this Ophiuchus zone for the past year, a little bit over a year, and that has some strong effects. Saturn being the slowest moving planet, Saturn being a really heavy, strong, powerful effect, it has come to confront these themes that Ophiuchus represents. And so I hope to use some of this music that I'm about to explore. I hope to use that to elucidate some of these themes. But to break it down, first of all, before I get into the lyrics, we see there's a man with a snake. So this is an eternal relationship. It's almost like they're married together. Ophiuchus is kind of a pitiable figure because he's holding this burden in the form of a snake. A snake is a wild animal. A snake has a temper. A snake, especially in India, is thought to be an incarnation of Vishnu. And it's a really bad thing to kill a snake in that tradition because the snakes, since they represent Vishnu, they can dole out punishment, and there's a saying that a snake will never harm a saint. So what else is important about snakes to acknowledge? Well, the snake has a poisonous bite. Such snakes as vipers and rattlesnakes, they are known for the poisonous bites. And because of that, they're deadly creatures. And other snakes, like pythons, will coil around their prey and they will suffocate them to death. So when we think about those themes and that being an integral part of the animal spirit of the snake, we can see how this also relates to the human spirit. Well, we can't see it yet. I've yet to explain that. But Britney Spears turns out is a great way to figure this stuff out, to really start to take note of Ophiuchus themes. And so let's get on to some lyrics. Okay, first of all, I've got Britney's chart here. She's a Sagittarius. And so if you know about the constellation Ophiuchus, it actually occurs in the sign of Sagittarius from about 7 to 30 degrees. That's an approximation. But if you have any planets really in Sagittarius, especially in the middle section of Sagittarius and towards the end of Sagittarius, that span is going to be really strong Ophiuchus energy. So this energy, like I said, has to do with the man holding the snake, poisons, and really kind of strict, restrictive relationships, and also the concept of being suffocated by something and being, so squeezed together. And, I can try to search for the words, but really that's why I picked out these lyrics that Britney sings, because they are so expressive of of the majority of Ophiuchus' themes. So, one of Britney's first songs was called Baby One More Time. So, oh baby, baby, how was I supposed to know that something wasn't right here? Oh baby, baby, I shouldn't have let you go. And now you're out of sight, yeah. Okay, tell me how you want it to be. Tell me, baby, 'cause I need to know now. Because my loneliness is killing me. And I must confess, I still believe. When I'm not with you, I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Hit me, baby, one more time. Okay. So that's just a taste of those lyrics. But what you can tell already is that this relationship she's describing, and how old is she? She's a teenager at this point, right? Singing these lyrics and putting so much heart and sexuality into these lyrics. This relationship is about life or death. One of the first words she's talking about is her loneliness killing her. And it immediately reminds someone of this relationship, of the snake coiled around. There's the notion of life or death to this relationship, whether it's through the poisonous bite of the snake or through its, stricture around the diaphragm and around his waist, and the control that this snake, this animal spirit, has over this man in the stars. Whether it's that or the poisonous bite, this is a relationship that is so heartfelt. It is so, raw and ravenous that it's dangerous in nature. And even as a young teenage girl, Britney was singing about these lyrics, and she was singing about it in a very sexual way. And, it should be obvious, especially by the way I depicted Ophiuchus, that this is a very sexual constellation, not only because you have a man with a snake wrapped around his waist, emphasizing the waist, and usually it's shown with no legs here, but the waist is prominent here, and the waist would lie, this would be the ecliptic, while the planets would pass through this constellation. But also because the snake represents, of course, the male genitalia, the penis. And the German word for snake, by the way, is Schlange, I think. And, so we can say this guy, he's holding a schlong, he's holding his schlong. So that's pretty sexual in itself. Um, but also, as we'll explore more lyrics by Britney, we'll see how this sort of relationship is sexual in a way that's very ecstatic. It's indescribable. It's the kundalini energy. Really, that's what that is here that we've got represented through the snake. The kundalini is always depicted as a snake, or largely depicted. And so, the kundalini energy goes hand in hand with the sexual energy. There's a lot of advice to, don't masturbate, don't waste your seed, because that's going to conserve your kundalini energy. First of all, I wouldn't listen to that, because the kundalini energy starts with the heart, or it starts with the body sense. And this is the whole mystery I'm exploring with this video, and why I picked some silly Britney Spears lyrics, because really people take this kind of energy very seriously. They take their kundalini energy as if it's a part of them. But I'll tell you now that what the main themes that Ophiuchus represents are the duality of man and his animal spirit, and also the unity of them in their relationship, being treated as one being. A lot of people, especially people who aren't really interested in spirituality or astrology or meditation or any types of esoteric learning, they will automatically assume that their kundalini energy is them. There's a union that they can't really dissect in their own spirit. But the truth is that once you discover these spirituality things, these spiritual things, and once you kind of get a grasp of seeing yourself from another perspective, meditation where you're seeing yourself from outside, well, then you might just realize, hey, some of these actions I've taken, some of these emotions I've had have been something that's conflicted with my mind, or something that's conflicted with my heart. And so that conflict there is moments of duality. And it clues us into how Ophiuchus represents that relationship of the human spirit with its own kundalini energy, which is very wild, dangerous, and poisonous in nature. So let's go on to another song by Britney. Okay, so the second song I chose to, I don't know if I'll sing this one, I don't really know this one well. It's called You Drive Me Crazy, and it's one of our early songs as well. It goes something like, baby, I'm so into you. You got that something, what can I do? You got that something. That's something. What is that something? Baby, you spin me around. The earth is moving, but I can't feel the ground. So, blah, 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 blah. The chorus says, you drive me crazy. I just can't sleep. Whoa, I'm so excited. I'm in too deep. Oh, crazy. But it feels alright. Baby, thinking of you keeps me up all night. Okay, so these lyrics are great. It's an introduction to the theme of Ophiuchus, which relates to poisons. Okay, and that's why I stopped at the line, you've got that something. Because that something is something, if you catch my drift. That something is a sweet, unctuous nectar, or it's a jolting dose of caffeine, or it's a sedative kind of, drug that makes you just zone out. Whatever that something is, it's something that is dangerous, and it's that notion of the inexpressible nature of addiction. Okay? And so this is the premise for so many of her songs, the relationships she is describing. It's a relationship of of danger in the fact that you get a little dose of that poison, and what it does to you, you become lovesick. You maybe start hallucinating. In this song, it's giving Britney some mania. And that's described in the chorus. You drive me crazy. I just can't sleep. I'm so excited. I'm in too deep. So those lines acknowledge the effect of that something that she's receiving from her partner. And that something it drives her crazy and it makes her manic. Okay? So the line, I'm in too deep, is saying, like, wow, I realize this is dangerous. But then, one of the next lines is, but it feels all right. So you see there's a duality and there's a little bit of a conflict. And I think that's really a huge part of what made Britney Spears such a huge hit and such a sex symbol. And a sex symbol that had a lot of, power behind it, because it was a young girl talking about these things in such a mature kind of, suggestive way that really got to the heart of relationships that are dirty, relationships that are a little bit depraved, but they're addicting. And so that's kind of the nature of her songs. And it's also sort of descriptive of pop music in general. Pop music being fabricated as somewhat of a drug, somewhat of a poison. If it gets stuck in your head, you learn to hate that song if it gets stuck in your head, because you get too much of it. Okay? And so the premise that I'm dancing around with these words is that there's an old adage used in homeopathy that says the only difference between a remedy and a poison is dosage. So that's a point to really consider about all these things and the dangerous substance, the dangerous nature of love that Britney is always talking about in her songs. Most of them, the most popular ones at least. So this next one, a lot of people might know, especially if you're in the millennial generation and you watch the VMA Awards on MTV. This is her famous performance where she came out holding the snake. The song is called I'm a Slave for You. So, if I haven't been able to illustrate how the lyrics relate to this theme that Ophiuchus exudes, then, her ritualistic action of taking on the snake and performing with it and bonding with it on stage and wielding it with strength and power and confidence. That should be a real clue to show you that Britney Spears, through her music and through her alter ego, which she has acknowledged taking in order to perform, this alter ego that is almost a snake itself. And so that's another point about the kundalini, is that when we see the duality of the rational spirit, or the human spirit, and the animal spirit that resides within, in the form of desire and what we call the kundalini energy, then we see that it can be employed and it can be seen as an alter ego. And so having access to this is something that makes Britney a great performer. But as we saw from some of the things that happened to her in 2007, and then after that, the difficulties of getting back on the horse with her career, shaving her head, needing to have a total rebirth almost. And the action of shaving itself is very connected to the snake, because the snake sheds its skin, and the way that it sheds its skin allows it to grow, and it also allows it to heal. So the snake shedding its skin renews its youth, and it renews its bodily survival. It renews itself, it transforms itself, it rejuvenates itself through this process of shedding its skin. And so we as humans don't really do that much, but we don't really shed our skin that much unless you, I guess, have psoriasis or dry skin. But it is related to shaving. The act of shaving off layers of hair, of cutting off everything that represents, of also, scraping the skin, which was, common practice back in ancient times, especially with athletes and among the ancient Egyptians, scraping the skin, shaving the skin. These were all rituals, or not rituals, but these were all actions they took in order to renew themselves, in order to increase their bodily vitality. And that's a big part of the kundalini energy, is housing that, wild animal force in a body that is able, and a body that responds, and a body that is young and rejuvenated, so that the beautiful spirit of the kundalini can shine through. So if we want to look at the lyrics of I'm a Slave for You, I think the title, because these lyrics aren't really that. Besides, I'm a slave for you, I'm a slave for you, I cannot hold it, I cannot control it. So we see here in these lyrics just how deep this conflict between the man and the snake goes. Because it's the question of who is a slave to whom? Who is in control? Is it the kundalini energy, the snake, with its fierce bite and its strict squeeze? Or is it the man with his 4 arms, with his 2 arms and his 2 legs, his 4 limbs and his large stature and his human nature? Who's in control of whom? It's that constant push and pull between these 2 forces that really captures the themes of Ophiuchus, and also, like I said, what exists within the human spirit when it comes to dealing with our kundalini energy. And so we see these themes directly reflected in the lyrics, because the song is called I'm a Slave for You. Britney is acknowledging that she is a slave to, the song is pointed at a lover, but the lover exists within herself. All these songs are about lovers, but she's talking also to the desire within herself. And she's talking about the desire within herself. She desires to be a slave. I'm a slave for you. I cannot hold it. I cannot control it. So there is, a constant recurrent theme throughout Britney's music of, I can't control it. I can't control this kundalini energy, this sexual desire that's flowing through me. And that's good, I guess. When you're young, it's inevitable, but I think we saw, if you follow Britney's career, we saw her have to develop a necessary way to control her desires. Because desire, when it takes over our spirit and our whole body, it becomes imbalanced, okay? And so when desire becomes imbalanced within the spirit, it can do horrible things to the body, and it can decay. It can cause the body to decay, and it can cause the spirit to decay. And if Britney serves as an example of these kind of this balance going haywire, then we see that it had serious ramifications on her career. But also, what Britney doesn't talk about is how strong she is, and the fact that she was able to get back on the horse, and she was able to continue with her career. She was able to, regain custody of her children. And that shows that there is a mastermind somewhere who is really in control of what, makes her so sexual and desirable. So I'm a slave for you, that's a big one. And this next one is probably the biggest indication of the huge influence of Ophiuchus in her life, and how actually marketable these kind of themes are to the public. So the song I'm talking about is Toxic. And this one's a little bit hard to sing. But baby, can't you see I'm calling? A guy like you should wear a warning. It's dangerous. I'm falling. There's no escape, I can't wait, I need a hit, baby give me it, you're dangerous, I'm loving it. So within those first lyrics, those first stanzas, you get a huge sense of the kind of the simile between drug use and this love affair. The comparison between the sweet feeling of love and sexuality and touching your lover and that notion of this is a little bit dangerous. Because I think we can all understand if we've ever been in love and really gotten in too deep, falling head over heels can be a bad thing because it can cause us to do things that are a little bit crazy. And so Britney's music really gets to expressing that. Unfortunately, we have to learn those lessons all on our own, and Britney Spears' music doesn't really ever say, hey, I learned my lesson. It's more about pushing the limits and keeping this conflict alive. And because this conflict seems to really sell records, and this conflict is sexual in nature. It is the wrestling match between the masculine and the feminine of, who's going to compromise here and who's going to compromise there. And, how is it going to affect our spirits? And how do we transform in the process of love? So Ophiuchus represents that to a T. And so, this song, you're toxic, you're toxic, you're toxic, a taste of a poison paradise. This beautiful poetry, actually, of her lyrics, taste of a poison paradise. So poison is, naturally a really negative thing, but the phrase is a poison paradise. So a paradise is a beautiful thing. And so these lyrics show you they paint a lovely picture of how difficult it can be to let go of something that is both poisonous but also so sweet and so sublime at the same time. I think Britney Spears, despite the fact that they're depraved and stupid pop music and dance music, whatever, a lot about it is expressive of the human nature and the movement of kundalini energy and getting that kundalini to rise. And, this kundalini energy is the same force that leads us to enlightenment. It's the force that leads us to taking action towards our goals. If you have no desire, if you have no, hunger for some sort of achievement, you're really not going to do anything. And, that's sort of depression. So that's another balance between depression and, addiction. And often people who get addicted to poison paradises in the form of drugs, in the form of, alcohol, what have you, it does, get more and more and more out of balance. And so, when we face these themes, we can see that they actually are reflected in the stars. And how wonderful is that? How wonderful is that we have a concrete example. I mean, I use the word concrete kind of loosely, but we have an example that's revolving around us every night, and we see it, how ancient it is. And we can see all of the ties it makes to our current reality. And that's what I hope to do with this type of content. So the final song I'm going to talk about, probably because you guys are tired of listening to me sing Britney Spears songs, is Give Me More. Okay? This is full on 2007 Britney, where she went crazy and she couldn't even do press for this album because she was in rehab. She was forced to check into a mental hospital. She was forced hospitalization because they said she was a danger to herself. She started attacking paparazzi with an umbrella. She shaved her head, supposedly because she was getting drug tested and she wanted to eliminate the evidence. But obviously you have all these songs talking about, you drive me crazy, this is dangerous, I'm in too deep, too high, can't come down, I can't sleep, Obviously, 2007 was a point where this stuff came true. And it was not a game anymore. It actually became kind of sad, and kind of scary. And so these harsh realities can really be expressed through Ophiuchus. And if you can't extrapolate these thoughts yourself, then I will try to explain them to you, because it all seems a little bit scary when I present it like this. But really, I think what we should learn here is that when it comes to taking in the poisons of life, which we all must deal with, Ophiuchus and Britney Spears are not the only people dealing with their own personal snake. We all are. We all have these, duality to our spirit. And the snake is a very feminine spirit as well. It's associated with Athena, it's associated with Lilith, and it's also associated with Asclepius, who is a god of healing. But from figures like Medusa to Proserpina, whose name means the slithering or creeping one, like a snake, we see that this snake, the sign of which actually also the cobra hieroglyph was the way you wrote goddess in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, and so all of these pieces of evidence show us that the snake has an intrinsically feminine energy, and it lies so close to the earth that it's one with this earthly feminine energy, and so that feminine energy is wild in all of us, and it's about taming the beast. And this is the essence of self-mastery. If we're going to talk about Virgos, if we're going to talk about the sixth house, if we're going to talk about, perfectionism or this transformation of Pluto, then we have to talk about self-mastery, because this is the goal within all of these things, and it's the theme of all of these things. And it's, in essence, a marriage of the feminine and the masculine in a way that works, and in a way where compromise harms neither party. But anyway, to get back to some of the solutions I'm proposing, we look at the way snakes are used in medicine today. The way you create the antidote for the poison of a snake bite is you use the venom itself, but you use it in a very small dosage. Okay, so this is also the basis of homeopathy, where you use a very small bit of a substance and then you shake it up, 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 and somehow through some magical homeopathic process, it actually becomes the remedy for a certain ailment. So the snake's venom, in a very, very small dose, becomes the remedy. And so I think the same thing goes for drug use. And the same thing goes for love and ecstasy and sex and desire and indulgence. Okay, all this stuff that Brittany is talking about. So, the true self-mastery comes from finding the right way to trickle just a little bit of that poison, and the poison representing the harsh realities we all live in as well. The poison of having to compromise your spirit in order to exist in this world. Allowing that poison, that hurtful substance that makes you sad or makes you depressed or makes you angry or makes you distraught, allowing that to just trickle in and having a control of that dosage, and also being flexible when it comes to knowing your limits. Because sometimes life hits us with a poison tsunami, and it's overwhelming, and we forget how to ground ourselves. So this last song, Gimme More, is basically the polar opposite of the solution that I'm talking about. It's a picture of somebody who is acknowledging through the lyrics, gimme more, gimme more, gimme more, gimme, that this part of desire, desire for drugs, desire for romance, desire for sex, desire for fame also is a big part of it. Desire for money, all these things that wake up our kundalini and get us out of bed in the morning and make us kind of like, get really excited. These things in this song are seen to be something that doesn't please. There's a certain point where these, you can say, give me more, give me more, give me more. I just want more, more, more. The hunger becomes a bottomless pit. And so, so these kinds of things should be a warning sign for an imbalanced dependence on these types of energies, on the poison paradise that we all indulge in. So, I'm not sure I really want to. I mean, she's saying again in the song, I just can't control myself. And that is really the seed of this type of energy. But actually in the song, she's saying the audience wants more. So it's kind of this meta thing where she's acknowledging that everybody listening to me is sick with the same thing that I'm sick with, which is just desire that is endless. And so, we can draw this comparison to capitalism. How capitalism has to survive on desire, and desire getting out of hand is negative for capitalism, and there being no desire, there being too much anxiety. I was watching some kind of financial thing the other day, and it was talking about these rates. I didn't understand any of the jargon, but how certain numbers can cause anxiety, and that can hurt the market too. So basically what we have here is this delicate push and pull that maintains a balance. And so Ophiuchus is such a beautiful example of that, where we have the illustration of a delicate push and pull between man, the masculine kind of, solid and strong part of our spirit, versus that wild feminine who just wants to go out and slither around and she's got her hold on you. You know what I mean? That feminine spirit is strong. So it's about the respect between sexes, and it's also about the respect within ourselves of the masculine and feminine. And so I'm bringing it full circle. But the reason I made this video, in addition to it being a fun topic for me, and I really like Britney Spears, I love to dance, so I like her music, is because these themes have really been subject to a lot of reversals and a lot of emotion this year when it comes to politics and culture and how the races get along, how the sexes get along, and the themes of sexual violation, the themes of personal agency and personal safety. These themes have been quite shaken up and the subject of a lot of emotional tirades and a lot of emotional actions and a lot of immaturity and a lot of addiction to ranting, a lot of addiction to negative modes of expression. And so everyone now is kind of sick with this same dilemma of, how do I calm myself? How do I help myself to be grounded, despite the fact that there's something out in the world that scares me so much? And this duality is so evident as it is formed through opposing political parties, such as the conservatives and the liberals, the Democrats and the Republicans. So both sides oppose each other, but they don't realize how scared both sides are, and how strong both sides are, and how poisonous certain parts of both sides are. And so it's really interesting to see this sort of spiritual theme, incarnate before our eyes, and how much havoc it can do, and how it shows we really do need healing. And so Saturn, people call it the great malefic, but also it's a planet of justice, and it's a planet of strong, mature growth. And so I do have faith, I guess I'll say, in the progress we can make here with Saturn transiting Ophiuchus. I mean, I for one am really crossing my fingers waiting for it to be over, but it's also helped me acknowledge a lot of stuff in my life. There's been a lot of difficulties, a lot of really negative emotions, a lot of pain, physical in a lot of ways, a lot of emotional pain and loneliness, as Britney Spears mentions in all of her songs. But there's also those moments where that poison of negative emotions and fear and everything like that is actually somehow transmuted into something so divine and something so sublime that takes me there, that takes me somewhere where I feel wonderful. And so it's this strange, mysterious balance that we must strike between something that we don't understand. And that is the challenge of Saturn going through Ophiuchus right now, is negotiating with parts of the world and parts of our own spirit that even we don't understand, and even we can't foresee the action of it. And so it's like a snake. It's like dealing with a snake that's constantly coiling around, and it's constantly on this undulating path that is so wavy and strong, and it really, it's something almost completely foreign to our nature with our kind of clunky walking style, whereas the snake just slithers along. And so I guess I'll end this video by saying that, sometimes it's about allowing yourself to let go, and realizing that you can be addicted to things like fear, and you can be addicted to things like complaining, and you can do harm to yourself by not seeing the duality between your desires and your humility as just a human being. So with that, guys, I thank you so much. If you stuck around to the end of this video, good job! That's great. Awesome job. And I hope to make another one soon. Thank you guys for tuning in. Bye!